What's going on, everyone? We are back. It's another great episode of Liam Picks Fights brought to you by Prize Picks. It's the simplest game in DFS. If you've never given it a try, all you have to do is pick 2 to 5 prop projections. It's not you against a million other people like a lot of DFS games. It's just you against their projections. If you find a couple plays you like, you go ahead and play them over, under, and you mix them together. It could be across sports. They offer it on MMA, PFL, Bellator, UFC, as well as all these other professional sports that you know and love, NBA, NHL, MLB, all that stuff. So if you have never given it a try, go ahead and use my promo code Liam. They're going to deposit match you 100% up to $100. If you want to give it a try, go ahead and check it out. The information is in that description box below. But without further ado, I know why you're really here. And why you're here is to talk about UFC Vegas 55. We're going to be breaking down some fights with a very special guest today. My man, Pepe's in the house, and never joined the show before, but I've been talking fights with this guy for a long time. He's got one of the sharpest minds out there, so it's an honor and a pleasure to bring him on the show. So shout out to my man Pepe. I know he knows that readers are leaders, so welcome aboard. Pepe, how you doing, my brother?
Let's go, Liam. Doing fantastic. Stoked to be here. Thank you for having me on, and excited to break down some fights and make some money.
Absolutely, brother. These New York boys have been on a roll here lately, so looking to keep that train going. And we got a bunch of constant supporters in the chat. Appreciate you guys. Drew is here. Appreciate you, Drew. Good luck. I also have a good feeling, my man Wiz, Wiz the Goat. Appreciate you always showing up. Lieutenant Dan, Chris, for the love of MMA, appreciate all you guys being here. Let's get this money. Let's find these good spots. We got a great guest. We've got a great night. We've got a pretty decent night of fights, all things considered, and a lot of betting opportunities. So without further ado, let's start off in the women's 115-pound division. If you want to keep this one close to your chest, it's no problem. I do have a play on this fight, and I'm happy to discuss my angle. But I'm going to kick it to you first and see what you think of this fight, broadly speaking.
So I love this fight. I know a lot of people aren't going to be too high on it, but personally, I'm a fan of this fight. I was on Sam Hughes big last fight against Estela Nunez as a huge underdog, and she cashed a massive ticket for me, which was exceptional. And I was actually really impressed with Elise Reed's performance, going to the O2 in enemy territory against Corey McKenna. I thought she showed some improvements in her striking, her confidence, and that her accuracy with her strikes, her comfortability in the octagon was something that I took notice of. So I think these girls are going to throw down. I think it's going to be an aggressive scrap. I think Sam, her goal is going to be to try to get to the fight to the ground, because Elise Reed's biggest hole in her game is her takedown defense. And on the feet, I favor Reed a decent amount. I like her footwork. Um, her striking has shown improvements. Her right hand was just landing at will against McKenna, and I think McKenna's decent on the feet. So I think Reed should have success on the feet, sticking and moving, landing the harder shots, the more damaging shots, and I definitely prefer the Reed side slightly. Don't love the number, so I'm not like hammering it. But overall, I'm excited for this fight, and seeing that it's National Armed Forces Day on the 21st, Elise Reed, Army veteran, like I feel like she's going to be super motivated, super pumped to cash some tickets for the people who are choosing to back her, and that's who I'm going to slightly edge, but not a fight I'm going to go crazy on. How about you?
Yeah, man, I tend to agree. So for me, this was a small bet on the favorite, despite the fact that I have my odds mug here with the underdogs all over the place. Man, I'm normally looking at the dogs first, but for me, the problem with getting to the dog play here is, number one, it's a really quick turnaround, not normally plus EV looks. We've seen even good fighters sometimes on that really close turnaround, about 30 days here. For Sam Hughes, struggle to find that wind in the third round, things like that. And while Sam Hughes historically has done pretty well with that, that's a potential reason why she could underperform. Number two, I kind of like everything I've seen from Elise Reed in terms of her buildup. She really doesn't have all that much experience in MMA, a short professional career, but it's been progressively getting more and more difficult as it went on. I think she had a pretty good level of competition in CFFC on her way up. And I think that so far, so good in terms of, what has she been expected to do? She wasn't expected to beat Sijara Eubanks. That was really an unwinnable fight for her. When she had a winnable fight put in front of her, she was able to do it, even in enemy territory, like you mentioned. This should be a little bit of an easier opportunity. She's got double the rest period in between fights. I just think there's a couple things favoring her here. So, I'm a little bit interested as I see this number dropping down to minus 150. I want to see how low it'll go. Maybe get involved if it goes low enough to add to my position. But right now, I do have a small position and I'm probably just going to hold on to it where it's at.
Yeah, and to know Sam Hughes isn't the greatest wrestler, so the game plan that she wants to impose, she's not good at. And Elise Reed has shown that she's been able to be taken down regularly, but when you see her, she fights her way back up. She finds a way to pop back up often. So I don't. Sam Hughes isn't the kind of girl who's going to have some crazy top pressure if she does get her down. So I'm confident that if it even does hit the mat, that Reed will be able to pop back up. And I just see her landing the harder, more damaging, cleaner shots on the feet.
And she actually did a pretty good job in the tape that I saw of getting back on top when she was put underneath and doing some pretty damaging ground and pound when she had opportunities on top. So I think that, if she's able to reverse positions, if she's able to look for takedowns of her own, we could see potentially, Reed finding her way to a finish here as well. Sam Hughes, not impeccable defensively, and has been submitted before choked unconscious. Granted, it was a while ago. She responded by choking somebody completely unconscious in her next fight. So both these girls have had some fun fights. It was actually shocking to be revisiting tape. I thought that Hughes was much worse than she turned out to be, but I also think Reed's a little bit better than I sold her out to be last time. I bet McKenna inside the distance. Never had a chance. So I thought she was going to be able to ground her a lot easier, and she wasn't able to. She wasn't able to get close. I thought Reed did a good job on the back foot, controlling the distance. And, she's kind of got that funky outside style where she's not just a, plotting 1-2. She can throw some kicks. She can mix in different aspects of the game. So I like that sign. But with that being said, we can move along here to the next fight because we've got Chase the Dream Hooper taking on Felipe Colares. And, got to respect my man. Been hearing some rumblings that there may be some sharp movement on the Colares on the under here. I do think both these guys are very hittable. You look at this fight, you see two guys that are extremely hittable, that like to put themselves into volatile grappling situations. One thing I noticed was in the Steven Peterson fight, Chase Hooper actually put himself in a couple negative leg locks that could have went the wrong way if he was against a more sophisticated leg locker in his own right. However, I do think that he's got a pretty strong ground game. I like what I see from Chase Hooper. He's funky. I think that, he's kind of been out physicaled in a bunch of his UFC matchups. I think that in this matchup, it's going to be interesting because Colares, he's had some experience at 45, but I thought that he didn't look so great in those fights, especially at the UFC level. I thought that, his cardio has been a concern for him. I think that he's extremely hittable in terms of, he can throw good kicks, and that keeps people at bay sometimes. But he normally is very, very hittable in punching range. And I've seen him run onto punches from a number of people. Saw him put himself in a bunch of compromised positions against the likes of Domingo Pilarte. I'm trying to think who else. Geraldo de Freitas. And his cardio was really struggling in those fights as well. So I think that we might be able to see Chase Hooper, who is known for being very tough and pretty gritty, survive some scary exchanges early because he's probably going to get hit with some clean kicks. He doesn't have the greatest striking defense, but I think his footwork is okay. I think he might be able to catch kicks and turn it into takedowns here. So I would be interested in the dog or passing here personally, based on what I've seen on tape. And I think that the under is an interesting play here. I was actually thinking about putting a very small play on Chase Hooper by knockout because I've seen Felipe Colares rocked in every single fight that I saw of him on tape in the UFC. So for that reason alone, I do like to look for these guys who get wobbled but don't get finished and play big plus money numbers. It's like plus 1,200 on Chase Hooper by knockout. That's at least catching my eye. And man of the library, shout out says, I see you with the t-shirt colors. Shout out to my man, Blake Perry. I know he cashed a lot of you guys that plus 700 ticket. You heard it here first on Liam Picks Fights that Blake Perry does not find a way out. He finds a way in. So if you cash that ticket, go let Bellator MMA know that they need to get Blake Perry back in your life, back on your television ASAP. Shout out to my man, Blake Perry. And shout out to my man of the library, blue and yellow for the win. Let's go, St. Louis. That being said, we can move to your opinion on this fight. Do you think that I'm crazy? Do you think I'm huffing pain here on the Chase Hooper plus 160? Or do you think there might be some legs to it?
I don't think you're huffing pain. I don't see the KO personally. Colares has shown to be super durable. He's been in there with Montel Jackson 3 rounds. Luke Sanders is a heavy hitter. He was able to survive, and Chase Hooper just hasn't shown any
How is he able
danger.
to survive? He was rocked around like 5 times in the first round. I think Luke Sanders
and he's
just
nodding.
fumbled the
He's
bat.
nodding. He's like, bring it. I want more. Like he's just one of those guys that they're just kind of built different. Like when they get rocked, that's when the fight starts for him. My problem with him is with Colares is his fight IQ. And in a fight with Hooper, I just feel like he is gonna make pivotal mistakes at the wrong time to put himself in negative grappling situations to throw away rounds. Um, I personally think fight goes the distance is at like minus 135 isn't too bad because there's a chance that Colares can just like outmuscle him and like outgrown man him and like big brother him a little bit, and he does have good kicks. He'll be able to land clean, but I kind of do see Hooper like weaseling grappling situations to steal rounds. And I just kind of have a feeling that Hooper by decision is going to be my official prediction. And I think that's where the value lays at current price.
I hear everything you're saying. I'm going to look at that one a little closer because I haven't moved on it yet. It seems like most of the action's coming in the way of Colares. As Man of the Library has mentioned before, sometimes you see sharp action come in on underdogs late, close to fight time. It's potential that will be this way. It's also possible the public's going to come in heavy on Chase Hooper. He's a likable guy. He's got a lot of these publicity things behind him, UFC.com, Fight Pass, a lot of stuff that promotes him. So that's something to keep in mind here in terms of watching the late line movement on this fight. But with that being said, guys, we can move along to a fight that, really didn't catch my interest too much from a betting perspective. We got Jonathan Martinez, who I normally look to fade or pass because he's typically favored. Not to say he's a bad fighter or anything like that, but just I think sometimes he has a bit of a compromised chin. I did cash the Davy Grant ticket against him. And, I played Perez against him at a big plus number, and people were calling me crazy beforehand and almost was able to sneak it out there, even with the ghost of Alex Perez. So I think, I don't know if I'm as thrilled about getting behind vsMorales this weekend, but I've definitely considered it, especially as this line continues to increase. I was, fence sitting at the plus 180s as it goes over plus 200. I'm like, I think definitely violence is on the table here. And that's what I was saying was kind of my thoughts on this fight at a certain point. It's like Morales has really shown me no ability to defend leg kicks. So Martinez, if he comes out here with a smart approach, could probably take advantage of that. But Martinez also doesn't always take a smart approach. I think he's kind of got some combinations he likes to throw in every fight. And I think we're going to see some of that here, the front kicks, whatever. And I think he could get countered and caught. It's definitely a possibility, but I also just don't know how excited I am to get in board with this fight. So are you going to talk me out to a side here?
I don't think so. Personally, the way I see the fight playing out is I think Martinez is the much more advanced striker. I think he has way better feints, way better head movement, way better variety, way better footwork to what he does. The problem is that he is kind of low volume, and that's also a negative to Morales too. He's low volume himself, so the margins for Martinez winning a decision are pretty thin, and same can be said for Morales. I think Morales will have to rely on landing a heavy shot, and that's definitely live because Martinez seems to get like randomly caught, despite him being like a really good striker, despite him being a pretty solid minute winner. Um, I just think the way that I look at the fight, I just think Martinez is the much more advanced striker. Morales seems to whiff a lot on a lot of his strikes, and even someone with like Draco Rodriguez was kind of giving Martinez issues, or was giving Morales issues. Um, and Martinez just brings a way more advanced skill set than what Draco does on the feet, and I think he's going to be the clear minute winner. But that being said, Morales is always live to land a big shot, knock Martinez down. Martinez does have some mild durability issues, and he also has a history of not um, properly making the weight. He's big for the weight class. So that's another red flag on the Martinez side. But as far as skill for skill, I definitely see Martinez having a clear path to winning a decision pretty easily. And that's going to be my official prediction, Martinez by decision. However, there's not, any value on that at current price. It's pretty much what the bookmakers are seeing as well. But that's how I'm reading the fight. I don't think Morales is going to knock him out, but it's always a possibility.
Yeah, man, I tend to agree. It's a fight that I'm probably just not going to get to the window on. I think that it could go in a variety of ways. Like I mentioned, I could see both of these guys getting finished. I do think they're tough guys, but at the end of the day, if your chin is exposed on the one side or you can't defend one of these strikes that somebody could just take for free all night with the leg kicks, for me, that's just hard to bank on either one of them. The big plus money is the only thing I would think about chasing, but I'll probably just end up letting this one go
Yeah, they're
because
they're
I've
also
also whiffed on Morales unders before against
they're
Draco Rodriguez.
yeah, and he dropped Draco. Morales tends to drop people. He's done so in multiple fights, but he doesn't knock them out. And Martinez has been dropped and has been shown that he can fight back into it. So maybe that's a live situation where Morales can steal around like that. But with bantamweights, I just don't really want to chase an under, even though it probably is the value side. I just don't see it going that way. Um, Martinez is just, I like how he mixes in his kicks and his jabs. And I think he's really going to be able to throw Morales off his game with his feints and his footwork and how he mixes in his variety of strikes compared to Morales just boxing for the most part.
Yeah, I'm seeing now. I'm pretty sure that he cashed a bunch of plus money unders so far in the UFC Morales. So that's probably why there's a lot of interest in the Morales unders here. A bunch of his UFC fights have gone under. So
And
with that being, yep.
Martinez trained with Gutierrez, who, just sliced through Morales. So I'm pretty sure they're gonna have a solid game plan to target Morales.
Fair play. Fair play. With that being said, we've got Omar Morales taking on Uros Medic in the next fight. And this is a fight that, it's kind of got red flagged all over it, right? On the one hand, you've got Uros Medic. He comes from the Alaska FC. But that being said, I want to dispel a little bit of that because he has been training, in the mainland United States for a while now. So I don't think he's like just some Alaska FC guy that we can write off. He's got a little bit of UFC experience, but he didn't have a full seasoning on the regional scene. Meanwhile, Omar Morales, he's kind of on the other end of the spectrum. He's a veteran that might be aging out a little bit. Did lose his last outing to JSP, has been losing a little bit, doing that little back and forth win and loss deal. But Omar Morales has been fighting a higher level of competition. He did give a back and forth kickboxing affair with Giga. He was mostly on the wrong side of that one, kind of got shell shocked by some early kicks, but he did land some hard shots of his own in that fight. He tends to be a guy who lands hard strikes, but never really puts anybody away. And that for me is a concern here against a guy like Uros, who is big and normally comes forward and throws heavies early. And I'm not sure what Morales has to keep him off. He doesn't attempt takedowns at a very high rate. I went back and checked. I think if he pursues them here, that would probably be wise, just to try and tire this kid out, because Medic, for all of his, athletic gifts and things like that, his cardio has definitely been something that's concerned me about betting him. He's one of these guys that a lot of his win conditions predicated on an early finish. So if he doesn't get it, then I'm left maybe holding the bag. But this is the kind of guy that maybe you can blitzkrieg early. JSP just did that. Not really a guy who does that to every guy he's going to fight. He can come out and barnstorm people, but he tends to build a little bit over the course of the fight as well. So I don't know, man. It's a little bit concerning here that the line has come down so heavily, in my opinion, in favor of Uros Medic. That might suggest, very short movement. It could suggest inside information. It could suggest a lot of things. So that for me is a little bit concerning. Ton of action on the Medic side from everything I'm seeing. How do you feel about this one?
So yeah, I definitely agree with you as far as both these guys are filled with red flags. I kind of view both of them as like mildly fraudulent at this point. Morales is getting old at this point. He's no spry chicken, and is 36 now. And Euros, you can't take too much from his tape because all of his fights have ended so early. So it's kind of hard to see how this fight is going to play out if it is extended over 7.5 minutes. And the problem is the under got steamed so hard that there's not a lot of value on the under anymore, because it opened at plus 145 and it's already down to like minus 175 in a lot of spots. And Morales has gone the distance in a ton of his fights. He doesn't have a lot of power. And the UFC fight where Euros was stopped early was by Jailton Turner, who has a ton of power. But in that fight,
And catch
Euros,
me plus 900 by sub.
very sharp, very sharp. I was there for that fight. And Euros was just looking for a way out real quick. Um, I know there was grappling early, which is something that he probably won't have to deal with here. But 3 minutes into the fight, he's looking like he was already pretty gassed. He took a jab to the face, and it looked like he kind of wanted a way out, and it wasn't shortly thereafter that Turner was able to find the finish. So we don't know what his cardio is going to be like at all. And Morales hasn't really shown a ton of finishing upside in a lot of his fights. So it's hard to see how this fight's going to go. But I think Euros is at a huge speed advantage. So I think he could take advantage of the striking early. And King's MMA has prepared for Morales in the past with Giga. So I know they're going to come in prepared. Um, it's just not a fight that I want to have a ton of money invested on, with all the questions that remain for both of them. Uh, I don't really see the fight going the distance, but you don't want to lay a ton of money on a heavily juiced prop like that. So um, nothing I'm super interested in at this current price. I don't really see a ton of value at all.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you, man. And I'm taking a look here. Even in the prop market, really nothing stands out to me. Medic, plus 550 wins in round one. It's not really all that inspiring. 7-1 on the KO in round one. Maybe I'll put a sprinkle, as they like to say, on that, but probably nothing official for me on that fight. So with that being said, we can move along to a 265-pound heavyweight limit between Parker the Goat Porter. I can't call him that anymore after he cost me so much money on that fight going the distance with Alan fucking Buddo. But with that being said, he's fighting Jailton Almeida, somebody that I did cash as a dog on the Contender Series, and I tried to fade to no avail with poor Danilo Marquez. Never had a chance. I was basically banking on guy with some UFC experience, pretty good at jiu-jitsu. He got train wrecked because that guy was younger, stronger, picked him up, turned him every which way but loose. But, it's going to be a lot harder to do that to the thick-bellied Parker Porter. Been around the game for a really long time. I've heard some people talking about his fight with John Jones this week. That was in 2008, my friends. That was not in 2014. This guy's been around doing the damn thing forever. And, he trains with a pretty low key team. He's not the world's greatest fighter. I'm not going to pretend that. What I'm very concerned about is somebody made a good point earlier, which is that heavyweights sometimes end up on their back and look like complete fish. And that is true. That can be true. But Parker Porter, from what we have seen, his top game is pretty sound. Looks like he is competent in jiu-jitsu. You'd hope he's competent from the bottom position. Praise the Lord. But I think that when I look at this fight, I'm definitely not going to be laying minus 600 on Jailton. It's possible he could come out here and nuke him early. He's very fast. I think that Chris Dawkins, he's not the world's most powerful hitter. He's got some power behind it, but really, he's just hand speed off the charts for a heavyweight. And Parker Porter cut a lot of weight before that fight, was in a position to lose, but the hand speed also was just completely obliterating him early. And maybe Jailton comes out here throwing strikes. I think that would probably be a better path for him. And I think that might be, a more sound way to look to bet that Jailton side potentially is to look at that Jailton by knockout prop. Actually, it's been bet down. It's plus 300. That's gross too. Nothing on Jailton makes sense. So I wouldn't be playing the Jailton props here. For me, it's a dog or pass situation. How do you feel, Pepe? Are you getting to the dog here? I haven't gotten to him yet, but I'm seeing plus 490 on FanDuel. I'm waiting to see what this runs out to. I might have to put a unit down for the culture.
Yo, Parker Porker owes the MMA Twitter community a fucking submission prop. That was ridiculous how he wasn't able to get it done against Bordeaux, like an absolute softball, and just whiffs and like barely edges out a victory. It was super ugly. He didn't look good at all. That being said, he has a chance to make it up for us this weekend. Um, the fight doesn't start until Almeida goes for a takedown and can't get Porter down. That's when the fight starts. And I I definitely am gonna have a slice of Porker by the time fight comes. And I'm gonna be looking at the Porker KO prop because a situation where Porker is 290 pounds by fight time on top of Almeida, if he's able to find his way on top of Almeida at any point during the fight, raining down blows, I don't see the fight going much longer. So a 12-1 KO prop on Porker is probably where I'm seeing the value on this fight. And I just see it as an opportunity for Porker to make it up to us. That being said, would I be surprised if Almeida gets him down and out early? No. If he's able to get Parker Porter down like very quick into the first round, he's probably going to finish him. But when we're talking about value and um, and where we can see potential spots to make some money, I see Parker Porter as a good potential underdog to bust some parlays and make it up to the boys.
You know something? I think you might be onto something because it's getting hit down right now to plus 1100. I
As
see
we speak.
on best fight odds, correct? And I'm also seeing right below that plus 800 Parker Porter inside the distance. I'm not saying it's likely he submits this man, but he does owe us a submission. And
Yo,
at a similar price as it starts to drop on the KO, I'm just like.
right.
I don't know. I think that
How
honestly, the money line is like I don't want to be greedy here either because
right.
at the end of the day, it's a plus 425 underdog. If he's able to win by freaking disqualification, we should all thank our lucky stars. And
Yeah.
Mike Jackson, easy bread.
Yo,
All I'm saying. That's why you don't want to get too
Petrovsky.
cute.
Petrovsky
Oh,
last weekend, he was
if anybody
nearly a
follows me
plus
on Twitter,
400.
round one
Mm-hmm.
sub.
Yeah. These big dogs are hitting,
For sure. And Victor Henry earlier this year,
Yep.
plus 425, similar range. I'm just saying.
The line
Think
is
about
completely
it.
stupid. The line right now is completely stupid for a guy moving up a weight class. Come on.
And Jailton Almeida, I liked him a lot on Contender Series, but he's a dog on Contender Series, and he's a minus 600 2 fights later. You do have to just ask yourself that question, like, am I getting sold a bill of goods? He looks the deal. He's taking pictures with the champ. He's got big biceps, but can he go at heavyweight? This guy was just fighting guys at 185.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Interesting question. But I'm interested to see this one, man. It should be a shit show. If
Absolutely.
nothing else, it'll be good fun. With that being said, we got a middleweight fight. It's taking place between Joseph Holmes making his return after being on the wrong side of one of my better live bets of all time. Went pretty big on my man Jamie Pickett when he was a plus money underdog after I thought he pretty clearly won the first round, and I thought he was starting to outpace him towards the end of that. And Joseph Holmes really wasn't ready for prime time in a UFC spot there where you got a BJJ brown belt and Jamie Pickett. So this guy at the time was a purple belt, I think. Now he's a brown belt. Where was his advantage in that fight? He doesn't have the same amount of experience. Probably not going to be able to out wrestle him. Not quite as athletic or as physical. Maybe arguably not as durable. So he couldn't really engage as much as Jamie Pickett either. So it's like he was kind of just stuck trying to throw some strikes at range as he gassed out. What I liked is that I listened to this guy's interviews and he sounds pretty serious and he sounds like he was embarrassed by that first fight and spent his entire life in between just trying to get his cardio to the point where 3 rounds is nothing for him. And I like the sound of that. A lot of people have been saying they're going to be playing Holmes and playing him inside the distance this week. Or excuse me, yeah, Holmes inside the distance, the unders, things like this fight doesn't go, parlay and fight doesn't go. And I was like, if a guy's telling me in interviews I think these were quotes. He was like, I hope he has good cardio. I want this to go, I want this to go the full rounds. And he's like, obviously, if there's a finish, I'll take it. But he's literally saying, if this goes in my ideal circumstance, this is going to go 15 minutes. So for me, that would be a hesitation to play unders and things like this, especially when the guy's a 65% favorite. So I do think I like Holmes here. Amidovsky is very small for the division. He does train with good guys. He's getting solid looks. He's training with Kamzat. He's training with these guys in All-Stars. He's training with Bulgaria top team. He's no scrub, but he's been away for a really long time. And he's got a lot of ring rust, you'd have to assume. I think that this Joseph Holmes guy could get on him early, get in a striking flow. He's a pretty long dude. And I think if they start grappling, he'll probably have the advantage here. I think Holmes, when you hear his interviews, he's very confident in his grappling game. He said, I should be one of the best grapplers in this division. We'll find out. That's yet to be seen, obviously. Got a lot of work to do to prove that, but I think that's something I'm interested to buy into when we got this younger guy with length, who has all the motivation in the world. I like where his head's at in interviews. I think Holmes for me would be the side here, but I haven't ultimately played this fight from any perspective yet. Holmes and Holmes' decision were the two things that stood out to me. How about you?
So the problem is, if you listen to Joseph Holmes before his fight with Jamie Pickett, you would have bet Joseph Holmes in that fight too. The guy's just uber confident, and I can definitely respect that. He's definitely putting his all into his career and doing the best he can. Um, I was huge on Jamie Pickett in that last fight because I knew the takedown defense would be there, and on the feet, I saw it as a slight favorite to Pickett and the experience and strength of schedule. And that's the problem with Holmes. Everyone he's fought has, his strength of schedule is just so poor that it's tough to get like a true read of where his skill's at. And they're making you pay as if, he is this proven commodity, which he isn't. And then on the other side, there's just a ton of question marks with Alan Amedovski. So this is another fight where there's just a ton of red flags. I made a bunch of money fading Holmes in the last fight, and they're trying to sell me a bill of goods that he's, 60% again after a super disappointing debut. And I'm not going to buy the hype. I'm going to use a little bit of the money that I made on Pickett and taking the dart throw on Amedovski. Um, Am I super confident in it? Absolutely not. But he's plus 180, and he's got some power. Holmes has slowed down in all of his fights, even though he said he's working on his cardio. We've yet to see it. He looked terrible in round 3 against Pickett. Pickett just has no finishing ability at all, was just throwing that high kick, like absolutely no hands. If he had any hands, he would have been able to finish Holmes. Um, and, you know, I think Amedovski could definitely shock the kid, but I do see why Holmes is favorite. I'm just not going to place a bet on him at minus 200 to minus 220 when there's so many question marks. I'd rather have a big plus money ticket on um, a grown man who I know he has been training. I've been following him on Instagram, but yeah, I don't have a good read on the fight and how it's going to play out. I just want a big plus money ticket on um, all the questions that will hopefully get answered this weekend.
For sure. And I think as far as the book is concerned, I think as far as the public is concerned, they see a 7-year age gap. They see a 6.5 inch, whatever it is, reach advantage. It's pretty significant. But, you do have similar records, but one guy's a lot older. He's been around a long time. He's been in these gyms for a long time. So he might have a little bit of that veteran savvy that's not really baked into the cake with his record. So that's something else to keep in the back of our minds here. And he is from North Macedonia, Balkans region. That was for me something else that was just a little bit interesting. He's one of very few fighters from there, so I just thought it was interesting. Yeah,
he's been training in Vegas. He's been putting in rounds with Vittori, so I definitely
I think his gym All Stars has
serious.
a relationship with is it Extreme that he's been training
Yes,
at? Yeah,
yes.
I think they have a relationship. So
Hmm.
a bunch of those guys have been back and forth. Sean Strickland as well. So yeah, I saw what you're talking about in terms of his
Hmm.
training environment. Definitely a lot
Yeah,
of legit guys.
he's definitely in shape too. But
He's
that
just so
being said,
small for the division, man. That's
he
what
is.
he always stands out to me on paper. I'm like, wait, 5'8"? That's my size.
He's
Like, what?
kind of yoked though for being a short guy.
Oh, I mean, you have to be, or else he wouldn't make the weight. Short King, Alan Amedovski. Is he going to deliver a bag for the boys? Who knows?
It is.
But
It is Short King Spring.
you might have talked me out of my Joseph Holmes plus 500 decision bet, but
Watch him just run through Amedovski.
well, dude, the other thing about Amedovski and the concern I would have on that side is just he's again one of these guys that maybe he could win a decision, but his win equity so far is shown to be round 1 and maybe the first couple seconds of round 2. Like he's not really a guy that has this proven track record going the distance. So
We
that's
also don't have a ton
something I
of
look
data
for.
on him. Like it's either been people he was way better than or people who are well, it was Jocko way better than him, and then he got iced real quick by Phillips. But
I was saying
that
Jocko's the only guy who could drag a decision out of him.
yeah, exactly. But Jocko is obviously way better than Joseph Holmes. So
Joseph Holmes is going to try. That's all I'll say. He's going to try to drag a decision out of him if his interview is any indication.
yeah,
But with that being said, we can move along to a fight that I'm a little bit more convicted on, to be honest. And market's moving against me here. That's just fine. I think that there'll be, some love both ways on this, but the market's already, sort of set its piece towards the favorite here. So now you're seeing that buyback start on the Eryk Anders side. But we've got Jun Young Park here sitting as a relatively comfortable favorite. And I think that's deserved. You look at the body of work of Jun Young Park, and he did get knocked out in his last contest. Obviously, that's a little bit of a red flag, but you look at who it's against. Gregory Rodriguez, very dangerous striker, a guy that was able to meet him in terms of the grappling pace there. And it looked at times like Jun Young Park was about to close the show, and then he got caught and he got finished because his style is to present himself. He puts himself right in your face, he throws a ton of strikes, hits at a good volume, mixes in the takedowns, but against a guy who's a little bit better at grappling, a little bit better at wrestling, got a little bit more power, and you're constantly presenting yourself, eventually you're going to get finished in a fight like that. But this is a fight where I think it's quite winnable for him. I look at the Eryk Anders side, and I asked this in spaces earlier, and I didn't mean it to be disrespectful. I just meant it out of genuine curiosity. What exactly, specifically, is Eryk Anders good at? And I asked because when I'm going to be betting on somebody, I want to have like a coherent, like viable reason, rationale laid out. And I do think he's a good athlete, and I do think he's got a pretty good reactive double he's developed at Fight Ready. He was able to hit that on Darren Stewart with some reliability, cash me a nice ticket there as a favorite. However, he's got a terrible record as an underdog in the UFC. He's not performing in this odds category. And the reason being is because he doesn't have a lot of the things that can give you wins when you're the worst guy. If you're not as good as somebody, but you throw more volume, you give yourself a chance. If you're not as good as somebody, but you can get on top of them, you give yourself a chance. And maybe he could do that here, but I don't think he can hold top time on Jun Young Park. I think Jun Young Park is a better grappler than him. You hear Eryk Anders talking in his interviews. He's like, yeah, man, I was kind of doing the wrestling and the boxing for a while. I sort of forgot about jiu-jitsu. Okay, well, it's going to be hard to catch up. Jun Young Park, I can guarantee, didn't forget about jiu-jitsu. Guy's been in those classes, and, he throws a ton of ground and pound. If he's able to get on top of Eryk Anders, we've kind of seen the only times you see Eryk Anders really like shell up and not really want to keep fighting is when people get on top of him. Thiago Santos really put him in uncomfortable situations on bottom position. He's a little bit bigger, but I think that, that's the kind of thing Jun Young Park can do here by being technical, by using his chain grappling, his chain wrestling, by landing a lot of shots on the feet and forcing Eryk Anders to take bad shots and then countering him, getting on top, spinning behind. So I like Jun Young Park here. I think he's a better fighter than Eryk Anders. I think he's got a brighter future than Eryk Anders. But I also think it's possible. Eryk Anders is starting to get some sharp looks now. He's definitely coming down on the money line a little bit. But overall, I think Jun Young Park just has much more activity. And I think that people might be underrating his finishing ability. We have seen that Eryk Anders has been rocked a few times in the UFC. We've also seen that Andre Muniz was able to very easily submit him. Andre Muniz is a prospect I'm very high on. I did bet him to do that. I thought he was going to beat Eryk Anders. But I also think that, if Jun Young Park is smart, he's going to learn from that and say, hey, this guy maybe isn't the most technical jiu-jitsu player in the world. So even though he's strong, if I'm able to get to a dominant position, maybe I'm able to finish this guy. So I think Jun Young Park by sub is a possibility here. He hasn't submitted anybody yet in the UFC, but it's also been a little bit of a mistake of his. He could have easily submitted John Phillips, probably in retrospect, but instead he just bludgeoned him for 15 minutes to a very dominant decision. So I think that Eryk Anders will be hard to control early, but I think that it's possible Jun Young Park just outlasts him, does more, and finds a finish late, maybe a rear naked choke. So give me Jun Young Park. How about you?
yeah, I can definitely see why you like the Park side. Whenever I think of Park, I think about when I played him in DraftKings when he was against Phillips, and they robbed him of like 60 significant strikes and like completely fucked up one of my GPPs and like robbed him of 50 DraftKings points because Flight Metrics sucks. But Anders is a dog that I don't have a ton of interest in. I'm not going to say he's a dead dog, like he has no chance. He's just low volume and not the kind of underdog that I like to support. And I think Park is much trickier than him on the feet and in the grappling realm, and should have him covered almost everywhere. I think Anders' biggest win probability would be landing a big shot and rocking Park. Obviously, we've seen Park rocked in his last fight, so that's always a potential path of victory. So maybe I would look at the Park decision only prop, but I'm not even looking at the line right now. Largely, it's a fight I'm probably gonna pass on. It's one of those situations where I think the line is completely accurate and I don't see value on each side. So I'm going to completely pass, but I see why you do like the Park side.
Yeah, and I'm just looking now, it seems like most places are holding a little bit over minus 200 on the Jung Young Park side. You can get as good as plus 179 on the Eryk Anders side, but this kind of line went from like opening at a close odds to like ring way, way up on the Jung Young Park side. And to me, that's an indication that they're, trying to say like, let's get a little less on the Jung Young Park side. So for those reasons, I think it may be the sharp side, but it's yet to be seen. Best of luck to anybody who does have action. But I'll be rocking with my man Jen Young Park, Iron Turtle,
Yeah,
to get the comeback.
I
Let's
I
go.
didn't love I didn't love what I saw from Anders against Darren Stewart in the grappling realm. Um, that was definitely a fight that he made a lot more difficult than it should have been. Stewart almost won that fight. And if you're having a close grappling fight with Darren Stewart, I think Park will be able to take advantage of the holes that he does have and capitalize and be able to win rounds or potentially even get a finish. I don't see a finish, but it's definitely live.
Fair enough. And with that being said, we can move along to a fight where a finish is definitely live. We got Dusko Todorovic taking on Chidi and Njokuani, and this fight is also going to be contested. Oh, I just hit a complete fight skip. We can still hit this one, and then we'll circle back because we already got started. But Dusko Todorovic, 11-2. A lot less fighting experience. I think that's an interesting point to bring up right off the rip. You got Chidi and Kawani on the one side. He's coming off a massive win. Sometimes that does lead to people being overvalued in the market. It's one hesitation of mine. However, I think when the UFC booked that fight with MAB, it was to kind of see what they have. And he knocks out MAB, a notoriously durable pace fighter. So now they're like, hey, maybe we can build this guy. Maybe we got something here. I think now they're trying to give him a winnable fight. And when I look at Dusko, his defense is really horrific. It's like the guy leaves himself open. His chin is high up in the air. I don't like his hand placement. A lot of fighters that fight with their hands down have really good head movement side to side. He doesn't really have that. So he just has his hands down and just gets lit up with a lot of straight shots. And I think that's going to be a problem against somebody like Chidi. I think he's very quick on his kicks. He gets his kicks up in the air fast. And if you got your chin exposed, that can get smacked. So there's just a lot of problems I think Chidi presents for him. But I could also see the path for Dusko, and when you're looking at underdogs, you're sometimes looking for paths. This is a guy that can get inside and batter people in the clinch at times. And really, he could get on top of people and pass the guard, beat them up from the top position, get to the mount. So he's got some skills in the grappling realm, but I do think that he's a little bit green. I think Chidi's been around the block, fought a lot of really tough guys, and I think that Chidi could definitely knock this guy out. So I'm kind of more interested in the Chidi side here, but the number is not altogether inspiring. How about you?
Yeah, I got involved with Chitty when it was minus 145. I thought there was a good amount of value at that number. Right now, I definitely wouldn't be playing the Chitty money line. If anything, I would be looking to attack a prop, whether I thought he was going to get a knockout early or go for a decision. But yeah, you look at the guys that Dusko has been able to beat, Daquan Townsend, Maki Pitolo, not really quality caliber opponents. And you look at Chidi and his resume, you know, he's fought a ton of high level opponents. He's got a ton of experience. This moment's not going to be too big for him. He's not going to be intimidated. Um, so he should have all the advantages, especially early. The the concern would be if Dusko was able to get the grappling going and um, survive early and utilize the clinch, um, get Chitty down, get the ground and pound going. He does have very heavy ground and pound. His clinch work is solid. However, Chitty has good knees in the clinch, so I think he can do some damage. And I think he's experienced enough and vet savvy enough to survive those clinch situations, stay upright. And I think in the striking department, he just has such an advantage, the speed advantage, the defense advantage. He should be able to have his way on the feet with Dusko. Um, so I definitely see Chitty winning. I could see an early finish. I could see a decision where he clearly wins the fight, kind of like the Rodriguez fight, where Rodriguez was just having his way in the striking, and it was just, an easy 30-27 victory where Dusko stays alive. Because even though Dusko does have poor striking defense, I don't think he's as chinny as a lot of people think. In that in the fight where he got stopped, he never went clean out. He got dropped a couple times, but he was trying to fight back. Um, he never got laid out completely. So I think there's a world where he survives and Chitty just wins a 30-27 on the feet. Maybe Dusko tries to clinch up and unsuccessfully gets the grappling going. So um, Chitty by decision would be my official prediction.
Understood. So I think that's definitely an interesting look. He does have a lot of finishes, but you're right, man. He also has a lot of decisions on his record. So it's possible he's just able to outpoint somebody like Dusko. And I do think it's really interesting that Dusko's been fighting since 2015. Chitty's got pro fights in
Mm-hmm.
2007. This guy,
Right.
he's been around for a really long time. But shout out to my man Library. Says Chitty could be a parlay buster. Never know. And I do think the fact that he's getting so much love, even past this minus 200 point, does make me just a little touch concerned. At the earlier numbers, the number you got is an absolute golden number, but then it just starts to get scary when everybody piles in on the one side. So I may end up laying off this
Yeah,
as
you're
it
not
as it becomes
gonna
more popular.
you're not gonna feel good about a minus 230 Chitty ticket if Dusko gets him down in the second round and it's 1-1 going into the third, and maybe Chitty's getting a little older, maybe he's breathing a little heavier than you anticipated going into the third round.
Yeah, you'd hate to see it.
Hmm.
Good point. So with that being said, guys, we can move along to the co-main event, and this is another line where we saw some pretty strong movement towards Santiago Ponzinibbio. Now we're starting to see that money flood back towards Michel Pereira here, and initially when I thought about this fight, I thought it was pretty cut and dried. Michel Pereira is a lot younger. He's pretty dynamic with his offense. He throws flying knees. He just does a lot of things that could counter somebody coming forward constantly, like Santiago Ponzinibbio tends to do. He's a little bit more evasive. He tends to fight moving backwards, and Santiago tends to follow people around, try and put a jab on them, and try and get in their face and solve whatever offense he has coming back at him. And the more I think about the fight, the more I see how Michel Pereira can't have problems if the fight gets inside. Speaking of Dusko Todorovic, one of his notable knockouts on the regional scene that got him a lot of credit and acclaim was the fact that he knocked this guy Michel Pereira senseless. Granted, now Michel Pereira is competing at 170 pounds. He's huge. He looks like a Greek god at the weight. but he does have a tendency to gas out a little bit in third rounds. I had Nico Price for a small play in that last fight. Nico Price took a clean kick to the head as a grounded opponent. Nothing done about it, of course. Just laugh. You just have to laugh. Life is a comedy to the man who thinks, a tragedy to the man who feels. If you felt anything during that fight, it would just be utter remorse and sadness. So you gotta laugh.
How do you like seeing the UFC retweet that flip on top of Nico's head now as like a
Dude,
highlight of look how great Pereira is?
I quote tweeted it once and roasted it, and I can't do it. They use it every time now. It's like,
They
I don't want to
do
be a
now.
broken record. They just,
Right. They're
every
like,
time
look
he
how
fights, they're
great
like,
he
look
is.
at this foul.
Yeah.
Oh, cheers to my man Wiz. Appreciate you, brother. First dono of the night. Thank you very much. Out here kicking it at 1:30 in the morning. So I better get rocking and rolling here to get my man Pepe to bed. Appreciate you doing the late night stream for the people.
Anytime, brother.
You're the man. With that being said, though, we come to the main event of the evening, and I'm about to write my main event preview. I'm about to put it
We
all
we
in stone.
skipped what we thought was gonna
Oh, you're
happen.
so right. We skipped the absolute main event of the evening. So we got two WMMA bangers to go over, and that's a perfect time to mention the fact that if you guys haven't already, please go ahead and like this video, get subscribed to the channel. Missed last week, but now we got settled down in the new studio. So very excited to get back to work. Contender series on the horizon as well. Was talking about it on
Ooh.
Twitter, man. Did not miss last year on the contender series. Me and my man Gordo undefeated on that last season. So hoping to keep that ball rolling, the same momentum rolling into this year's contender series. Get subscribed now if you aren't already. But with that being said, I'm going to give you first licks on Tabatha Ricci versus Polyanna Vianna. This is the fight we forgot to cover, but it is a fight that I'm interested in. It's a fight that has a lot of implications, and it should be a lot of fun. We've seen that kind of tug of war, sharp movement, it would appear, dragging this line forwards and back. And man, I stated my case. I put down my bet, and interested to see where you came down, brother.
Okay, so I definitely like the Ricci side, but I am a little spooked because of how much love I have been seeing for Ricci on Twitter. And generally, when I see a popular pick like that all over Twitter, it usually doesn't come to fruition. So I'm a little more concerned than I thought I was going to be because I was fairly confident at backing her at the close to pick 'em odds that she's at, and I still do like her to win the fight. I like her aggression. I like her ability to get takedowns and get top position and control the grappling realm. Um, that's not to say that I don't see a path of victory for Pollyanna to keep it on the feet and make the striking close enough, land some good shots with the kicks, and get Ricci flustered. However, um, with my hard-earned money, I'm going to be backing Tabatha Ricci. I like her to push the action. I like her to land multiple takedowns, and I like her to steal at least 2 rounds and get the victory. And I like her to stay safe from the armbar from Pollyanna Vianna, who is notorious for locking it up. Um, but come on, I can't be afraid to back a minus 120 WMMA because she might get potentially armbarred. Like I I like I
How would
like
you bet
Ricci's
on WMMA?
I know, right? I like Ricci's dedication. I think she's fairly new to the game, but she's all in. Um, she's she's taking her training super hard. She's training with good grapplers. She's working on her boxing. I like her aggression. I like her grit. She's kind of like a Loopy Godinez, where they just have like that aggressive instinct to always push forward, to do whatever they can to win the fight. And I like her to will one out this weekend. And I did place a bet on Ricci. I like fight goes the distance as well. That's only, I think you can get a minus 128 on FanDuel. I think that's a great line. You pretty much just have to avoid Ricci getting armbarred. I don't see a finish happening from Ricci's side. Vianna's pretty tough, even though she got dropped by Hannah Cyphers. Um, you know, Ricci's not the highest volume girl. I don't see her like, knocking her out stiff or anything. I see her mixing in the striking, being aggressive, landing takedowns, and getting control time.
Well, brother, I tend to agree with you. So first and foremost, my man Jay said, facts, Liam, come on, he's sponsoring OnlyFans. Let me tell you this, both these girls have like private subscriber, members only, whatever you call them on Instagram. So if that's how you cap your fights, you've got to go deeper digging here, as far as I'm concerned. And I think that when I capped this fight, man, I started, basically I made a bet based on where the market was, because I didn't think it was going to stick around. So far, that's been borne out, right? You did see some short buyback when this got towards a pick'em price, back towards, a slight favorite here on the Ricci side. And that makes sense to me. I played Melissa Gatto, and there was a bigger plus money figure by her name. I played her at the plus 155 tag, and I thought that she did throw away some advantageous positions in that fight, but really she had a lot of physicality. She had some strength, some stand-up power, but what she lacked was 15 minutes of cardio that I needed her to have to win the fight. And when I look back at Polyanna Vianna, she does not have 15 good minutes of cardio in most of her UFC bouts. On top of that, I have seen that she's one of these fighters. I mentioned it a lot. Front-loaded win condition. All of her wins are coming in the first round by submission. I bet on her to win by first round sub. I bet on her to win by sub. I bet on her to win inside the distance. I bet fight doesn't go the distance against the Mallory Martins of the world, right? But now she's got another girl who's Brazilian, who I rate in terms of where she's training, Paragon Jiu-Jitsu. I did ask my jiu-jitsu coach what he thinks of Paragon Jiu-Jitsu. He had nothing but glowing things to say. So take that for whatever it's worth, but a couple endorsements, black belt that thinks that they have a sound program, sound jiu-jitsu over there. I think that her top game has been quite good. She gets wrist controls, she keeps posture, she throws ground and pound strikes. I think that she catches kicks at a high level in Polyana Vianna. A lot of her offense tends to come from kicks. And I also see that Tabatha Ricci, this girl's got some aggressive ground and pound. And, Polyana Vianna is oftentimes accepting that bottom position, but I don't know how much she likes it when she starts really getting hit. She's done a good job, threatening the likes of Hannah Cyphers when she's on top. So Hannah had to keep that tight elbows, very close game, but I would not be surprised to see Ricci stand to pass. She likes to do that. And I think she could stand and pass the guard of Polyana Vianna potentially. So she's going to have to be careful. She's going to have to be disciplined. But I think that if she's able to survive round one, she's going to win this fight at a much higher clip and be a significant favorite. So for those reasons, I'm looking towards that Tabatha Ricci side here. And I may take a poke on her to win by knockout. I may take a poke on her to win inside the distance. Because I think that it's the shark era, as I said to my man in the library earlier. So shout out Tabatha Ricci. Hopefully she can ship a bag for the boys.
Yeah, and you see Vianna's 0-3 in decisions. Not a great look when, all of her wins have been first round armbar. It's when you're getting a pick 'em price for that, I tend to side on the person who's won decisions and has the clear path to victory.
I'm with you, my man. So with all that being said, I'll give closing thoughts there. I did also play the under, and I played it small. But I feel like number one, that's a good hedge, and number two, it could be a stackable wager. If this fight goes the way I think, it could be a case of. There's some fights that I like to point back to as examples. There's a big height difference. There's a big reach difference. These are the things that people are going to say to me. She is small, but we've seen people go out there. Arman Sarukians of the world, and everybody tells you there's value on this dog, and maybe there is until they get smashed completely with ground and pound from somebody that easily got on top of them over and over again. So that's the one thing that gives me concern. Polyana Vianna normally doesn't even attempt takedown defense. There's no attempt to prevent going down. She pulls dart. She falls backwards at the first sign of a takedown attempt. So I think, maybe if she has a smarter game plan here, we could see a better result. But from what we have seen, she normally concedes the bottom position. And if she doesn't submit you in the first, we've seen people like, again, Hannah Cyphers hang out in her guard for 10, 15, 12 minutes, whatever it was, like pretty unaffected, pretty, few submission attempts as the fight wore on. So I think that's a little bit of an indictment. Yeah, JJ Aldrich as well. And additionally, like, even in some of those other fights, it's not like she didn't take a couple clean shots. She keeps her chin straight up in the air. I think that her striking and her grappling offense is quite potent, but I think defensively she's void and liable in both of those arenas. So for those reasons, give me Tabatha Ricci this weekend. And with that being said, now we can move along to the main event of the evening. We got another ladies fight here, and I'm going to come right out and say, I have not heard one person predict Ketlen Vieira to win this fight so far. And I've listened to a lot of breakdowns this week. I always do that out of curiosity once I have some reads established. I have not heard one person pick Ketlen Vieira this weekend. I find that very interesting. A lot of love for Holly Holm. And I get why, right? You watch her tape. The last fight against Irene Aldana, I'm going to be frank, she cost me 3.5 units. That was not a fun watch for me. I had Irene Aldana. She got completely danced around, toned up. I bet into a 7-year age gap there. I bet into the fact that I was seeing Holly Holmes start to slow down just a touch, start to finally get checked on the chin a little bit in WMMA. Granted, it's by Amanda Nunes, but still, she got knocked out brutally by that head kick. And the damage starts to wear on from, however it was, 10 years, 20 years of boxing, 15 years in MMA. It's like eventually this bill for damage starts to come due. And I do think it's possible that could come due in this fight. We see 40 years of age on the Holly Holmes side, 10-year age gap in this fight with Ketlen Vieira. We see Ketlen Vieira. She did have a knee problem earlier in her career. She did get knocked out, so she struggled with some confidence problems. Her lines went from being a pretty strong favorite to, being underdogs. And you look at her performance as an underdog, it's been admirable in the UFC. She's 4-0 as a UFC underdog. So historically, been a little bit underrated by the market. And it seems like a lot of people are banking on, I got to shout out my man Wiz Betts, but me and Wiz discussed this actually, in the private DMs last week, because I was thinking to myself, Ketlen Vieira might be a play for me, but I'm going to wait and see, where this line gets out to. And it's been one-way traffic, right? We're seeing this line steadily, slowly increase. And right now I'm looking at a market average on the Holly Holmes side of -250, having opened -210. And I will just point out, guys, if you look at the graphs, there was a little bit of sharp buyback when it hit -210, but now the number's been going all one way. And I think that's interesting as well. So as Man in the Library likes to say, sometimes people bet, the favorites early and the dogs late. You want to get the best of it when you're betting on a favorite. If you think that number is going to keep running, you want to get in early. If you want to get the best of the dog and everybody's all on the favorite, hey, let them have at it. Keep pushing, boom. You're there to stand athwart the market. So I think for me, I'm waiting to stand athwart the market. I'm going to be playing Ketlen Vieira. I'm not saying I'm going to be, all over a 10-unit lock, but I think that Ketlen Vieira is the value side as far as I'm concerned. When I look at the fight, I see a Holly Holm who is potentially going to be able to dance around her in the boxing, but she's really not the most dangerous striker in the world in terms of lethality. She doesn't put away a ton of UFC opponents. The ones that she does tend to be, a little bit towards this archetype. That's the concern. She did put away Betchko Hea, who's a little bit of a slower Brazilian upright striker. But that being said, Betch didn't have the same kind of grappling upside that I think Ketlen does in this opportunity. And Ketlen's a judo black belt. She's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt. Her wrestling is not bad. She wasn't able to out-wrestle Miesha Tate because she probably didn't want to. She's like, why would I? I'm standing on the feet having success. I think she's going to know that in this fight, she's not going to outbox Holly Holm. That's not going to happen. So I think she's going to try and close the distance. And whether it's with shots that can hurt her from the clinch or by taking her down and trying to establish dominant positions or winning the first 3 rounds, I think that Ketlen Vieira is going to try to eke out a win here or finish her. And, as far as I'm concerned, that's the side I'd be looking at. I'm not looking to lay minus 250 on a 40-year-old fighter that's been out for 2 years, that's coming off knee surgeries and pullouts and all this stuff. I do think that Holly Holm is on tremendous supplements. I do think that Holly Holm looks like she's in tremendous condition for her age. But the last thing I'll mention here as I kick it to you is that there was one interview that gave me a ton of pause on the Holly Holm side, which is that she is saying, I have 1 to 2 fights left on my contract, and I would be interested in a Katie Taylor boxing match. And if there's one thing that I know about the UFC, is that they hold grudges. They fucking hate Holly Holm's manager. Okay. They never liked this guy. I went back and found like 10 articles of Dana White calling this guy an idiot and saying that he doesn't know anything about promoting. He cost him the Rousey Holm rematch because they wanted to force that fight with Miesha Tate. And then she lost. She got submitted. And I think she gets submitted again. Ketlen Vieira, rear naked choke. Let's go. Pepe, how do you feel?
I'd love to see it. And on top of that, Holm trains at a terrible gym. Jackson Wink, awful. Not a place, not a camp that I like to support fighters coming out of. And I'd rather be early on fading a 40-year-old female 135er than late on fading them. And I think the WMMA juice season is over. I think there was a long stretch where Juice on WMMA was winning, and I think it's coming to an end. It has come to an end. I've hit on a couple big WMMA underdogs in the past couple weeks, and they all behaved very similarly to the line that we have with Vieira. When I hit Sam Hughes against Estela Nunez and Macy Chiasson against Norma Dumont, it was the same price point as what Ketlen Vieira is, and no one was picking them. There was not a peep about, oh, I think Hughes is the side, I think Chiasson is the side. Everyone was on the favorite, and what do you know? The fight plays out super close, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, I should have played that," or you got lucky. They got the decision win. It's like, no, I put my money in big underdog WMMA fights because most of the time it's going to play out very close. And this is one of those cases where I think it's going to play out close as well. I don't think Holly Holm is going to blow her out on the feet. I don't think she's going to chase Holly Holm around like Irene Aldana did. Irene Aldana fought a terrible game plan.
Small octagon as well.
Small octagon as well. And you saw how easy Miesha Tate got that rear naked choke. That's certainly a very live outcome. I don't think the exchanges on the feet are going to be as one-sided as people are hoping. Like everyone thinks that Holly Holmes is going to plot around and win a decision. And while that is a potential outcome, you're getting plus 200, plus 210 on Ketlen Vieira with the grappling upside, 10 years younger, hungry. Not to say Holly Holmes not focused, but like I definitely see all the value on the Ketlen Vieira side. I'm going to be putting some hard-earned money behind her as well. And I think the fight's going to play out closer than people anticipate.
Well, that is just music to my ears, brother, because seems like everybody is going all one way. And one of the things that I have succeeded the most at is standing against everybody going one way. It helped me with Chad and Hellinger. It helped me with Victor Henry. It helped me with, a bunch of fights where I've cashed tickets. Malcolm Gordon. It's like I can't think of enough times where when I was riding with everyone, we all freaking fell off the horse. But when I choose to ride alone, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Man, I literally knew I was making a donation. I was like, everybody, every single person I know, we can't be making money here. But dude, if it's just me, you, and Wiz, and maybe Man of the Library, then by all means. But I think Ketlen Vieira is an interesting play for me this week, and I'm going to be getting there at one point or another.
I won't feel bad at all if she loses whatsoever. I think it's a plus EV spot no matter the outcome. And I just think it's going to play out close. And, you know, Holm has had to pull out of her last 2 fights due to injury. Like, I don't see how people are laying minus 240 on her when she doesn't even have the grappling upside in this match. And Ketlen's striking looked better, and people will just write off that last performance like, oh, it was Miesha Tate.
But before the fight, they were saying Miesha Tate's going to beat her. This girl sucks.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And I was betting her.
She was patient. Ketlen was patient. She was accurate. She was powerful. I like her to mix the martial arts this weekend.
Let's do it, brother. So there you have it. We have gone through UFC Vegas 55 from all the way at the bottom to all the way at the top. We touched on every matchup. We touched on our favorite spots. We divulged some of our betting information. So the least you could do is give a follow to my man Pepe. Thank him for his great work on the show. Couldn't have been done without him. Absolutely brilliant insight as always. So truly appreciate having you on. And if you don't mind, man, tell the people where they can find you. And anything you have to get off your chest, please. The floor is yours, my friend.
Okay, so yeah, follow me at Pepe_Silvia716, and let's just chat fights on Twitter. I join a few spaces a week, and we just bullshit, and we make money. I don't make content weekly. I just like to make money betting on fights. I like to talk fights. I like to BS about fights. That's my deal right now.
Heck yeah, man. There's just nothing better. So I think that it's a great thing. As far as I'm concerned, one of the guys out there whose opinion I take very seriously. Don't like to be on the wrong side of a Pepe bet because I know that's probably a negative fee side for me. So always appreciate you being here, my man. Thank you very much for your time. Everybody who's been in the audience tonight, thank you guys for lighting up the chat. Bunch of very smart, insightful people always in the comments. So I'm going to be reading back through everything that I missed and make sure I didn't miss any nuggets of gold. So appreciate you guys. Going to try and do something on fight day as well, where I break down my final bets, that kind of deal. But in the interim, make sure you get subscribed to the channel. Got that Contender Series content coming up soon. Back at it next week. We're off next week. So maybe you'll get some, undercard type show. We'll do a B team Bellator or something, but we'll see what's on the combat sports horizon. Either way, if we end up taking the week off, God bless you all. Enjoy those fights in the interim. Let's go Ketlen Vieira. Vamos Brazil. Holly home backers. Everybody else, y'all are welcome here next week. But if you come around with that Ketlen Vieira ticket, just know you fam for life. So appreciate you guys and have a great night. Be well, everybody. Take care. This has been another great episode of Liam Picks Fights. Come back next week. We'll do it all again.